Emmett.
You ready to leave? Okay, good. All right, whenever you're ready.
Day 2 of practice. First of all, it's been great to be out on the floor. The summer was kind of broken up, so to speak. You had a lot of guys coming in. Early on, you had guys leaving and transferring, but to finally have the guys all in practice and being able to do things has been great. We have. I would say this. I think I said this at my press conference somewhat, but it's like the NBA in a sense because you have you have turnover. It's trying to gel new players. There's a mixture of older and younger, but I like what we have. I will say this before I go any further. Miles Kelly, for one, I think he has to play at an All-American level. Some people say, it skips steps. He hasn't, I don't think, been All-ACC as of yet, but I need him to play at All-American level. I think that's key for us. He has to be a shot maker. His ability to do that will definitely impact this team. And I've been practicing this last name for like 2 months now because I knew I was going to have to eventually talk about him. But By Ndongo, that's his last name. So I'll say it one more time, Ndongo. He's a freshman, and I think he'll be a guy that really, really, really impacts this program at a high level. Amari Abraham I think he'll be a really good player for us as well. Lance, I think Lance would be Lance. I think I probably, and I don't know what, because I don't really look in the past, but I think Lance is a really, really good college player. I think Kyle Sturdivant will help us and because he's up to this point, he's been a really good college player. They're older, they're experienced. So I look forward to coaching these guys, and the first couple of days have been great.
Questions? Go Rod first, and then Kelly. When you look at last year's team, I think the tallest player was Franklin at 6'7".
Right.
And so size was an issue. The guards had to do a lot of the rebounding. You brought in, I think, 3 6'9" players, a 6'11" player. How has that changed the outlook of the team going into this season, knowing you have some length up front?
Well, for me, in getting this job, I wanted to add length with athleticism. I don't have a physically imposing player, I would say, but I got a lot of within that. I have a lot of speed. I have a lot of quickness. I have a lot of shot blocking. We can get up the floor defensively. Harass teams. We can get up and down offensively. So that's kind of how I looked at it. If you really look at the roster, and you take away a couple of our smaller guards, we pretty much range from probably 6'4" to 6'11", and that was intentional. I was intentional with doing that.
I was curious what your experience was like navigating the portal for the first time. It's sort of like unrestricted free agency in a way in the NBA, but it works both ways because you can lose guys. You have to. Yeah. It's just kind of a totally different thing, probably from when you were coaching last time. Just what was that experience like for you?
I mean, it was okay. I think that before it wasn't as bad. Guys did transfer, but it was, like you said, it was a little bit different. But I think even moving forward, for me, I like freshmen. I just, it gets hard sometimes, and I think I got on the right guys, and we have really good players, but more so high character people. But I think for me, I like to know guys' families. I want to know who surrounds them, and I want to know a little more about them, and it makes it hard looking in the portal to try to find impact players from that standpoint. So I would rather, moving forward, I would rather that just be kind of, guys out of the portal are supporting my main guys that I already have, but not compromising, my culture at the same time.
Let's go with Brandon, and then we'll come back to Rob.
Coach, style of play and, getting better towards the end of the season, things that people want to know about. Your thoughts on what you hope to have out of the gate and what you're preparing for at the end of the season?
Offensively, you want to, I like playing with pace, but, the biggest thing offensively for me is don't turn the ball over. There's a couple things that stood out with this team. They did do a great job towards the end of the year, but they were last in the conference in assists. And, I don't want to be last in the conference in assists. I want the ball to move. I want it to flow. I want guys to play together. I want to create advantages offensively, and I need guys to be able to read and react. With this crew of guys that we have, I don't know if we necessarily got a lot of breakdown guys, so that's why the ball needs to be moving. And we have to create a lot of advantages. And on the defensive side of the ball, I think we got guys where we can get up the floor a little bit. I've been fortunate enough when I was in college, for the most part, I always had teams that defensively were at the top of the league, and offensively we tended to struggle. I think that those are one of the things that I don't want to flip-flop it, but I want the offense to catch up with the defense. And, for me, that's going to be able to try to create easy buckets, especially early. I think defense, a lot of times we forget that your good defense creates offense, and that's running out, limiting teams to one shot because – I know Coach Key was up here, and I always say this, to me, basketball, football, parallel. In football, what they say, you got to win the trenches, Usually if your line is dominant on both sides of the ball, you're going to win. Well, in basketball, if you play with low turnovers and you can rebound the ball on both ends of the floor, you're probably going to have a good chance of winning games. And I don't think that I want to use that recipe as I move forward.
Could you tell us what your approach was to putting together the coaching staff, and in particular, how important was it to add Coach Hobbs both as a teacher and as a recruiter?
Well, I'll start with Coach Hobbs. I think he just has a world of experience. He was an assistant on 2 national championship teams at UConn. He knows what it looks like. He knows, even when they won that last chip at UConn, I think it was 14, I think that they had to win 5 straight games in the Big East tournament just to get to the tournament because they probably wasn't a tournament team at that time. So he knows what the bottom looks like. He knows what it takes, and he was at UConn at the beginning when they were just getting off their feet. And I think if you look at Coach Williams and Coach Parker, they were the same way. Coach Williams, he was at Kennesaw State. First year they won 1 game, and then they made the tournament this past year. And Coach Parker, I used to see him on the road in little gyms, on little airplanes, in small cities, grinding. That was when he was at Indiana State. But I wanted guys that, were kind of used to building, and that's what it's going to take when you have a staff like that. And then, the support staff and filling it out with my other coaches. I got a couple NBA guys, and I think that's important too because in the landscape of today's college basketball, most of these guys aspire to be NBA players, so you got to know the NBA way as well, but there's a fine line to it. And if you look at my staff and you take Coach Hobbs out of the equation as well, got a lot of youth, a lot of younger guys, so to speak, and that was on purpose. I think that, in a lot of respects, sometimes I'm trying to give guys that haven't had a shot as well. So that's what I wanted to do.
Kelly.
Yeah, I was just curious, kind of what's your approach with lineups and trying to, are you 8 guy, 9 guy, 10, 11, whatever it takes, or are you like going with 5 or 6 guys, or kind of how are you going to approach that?
Nah, I'm going to play a lot of people. I don't think I think at times we fight, we fight a lot of things as coaches. And, like if a guy's a 10-minute player and he shows you a 10-minute player, why would you play him 15? Because normally when he get past his threshold, he's either going to be tired, start making mistakes, things of that nature. I'm no different. Guy shows me he's capable, he's a really good player, he shows me he's capable of playing 25, 30 minutes, he's going to play 25, 30 minutes. But I don't want to just slot things in. I think that as you're trying to create a culture and you're trying to create an atmosphere of accountability, you got to let the players play. You got to let them figure this thing out, and that's what I'm going to do.
Chad.
This first month or so of practice, what's your message? What are you looking for out of the guys before the season gets going? Attention
to detail. Like, I think this group of guys, even the guys that transferred in, and it's no knock on guys, but we got to change this. When collectively as a group, when guys raised their hands, we only had 2 guys that ever been to the NCAA tournament. And my whole message to them is when you think about why that's happened in your prior stops, what were the things that went wrong? And each of them, to a man, was, weren't held accountable. Well, not being held accountable comes back to attention to detail. Usually, if you're doing something wrong inside the lines, you're not living right outside the lines, right? So I always tell them, if I come over to your apartment right now, you make your bed in the morning, did you wash your dishes? What does that look like? You know what I mean? So for me, like, I'm trying to get these guys to become creatures of habits, and that's doing the right thing. That's being in the right spot. That's not compromising anything that we do for the betterment of the team and the betterment of your teammate more than anything. Because at the end of the day, you're fighting out there for your brothers, and so that's the biggest thing that I've been trying to instill in them, and that's on both sides of the ball and everything we do off the floor as well, and that's just the attention to detail. If we can get that down, then everything else will fall in place.
Brandon. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll come back to you, Sam. Let's go Brandon and then back to Sam.
Coach, you talked about defense and rebounding, maybe some of the staples, but this is a three-point shooting world in all levels. Your philosophy on three-point shooting, where you want it to be, what you want your guards to be, what you want your teams to be as far as the three ball.
I believe in the 3-ball, but I also believe in making shots that you can make. Again, throughout the summer, I did not limit any one individual. I did not tell them what they could or couldn't do. I will let their play dictate that in terms of how big their string is or how short it is. But I do love shooting threes, and if you didn't notice, I think for a while there, I held the most misses for threes in the NBA game at one time, about 21. So I'm just telling you, I live and die. I can live and die with the 3, but I more than anything, I want good threes. I don't just want threes just to shoot threes. I want good threes, right? You want the right people shooting them, but I'm not against 2s. There's always a fine line because I do, as much as I'm saying this offensively, there's things that I believe in wholeheartedly defensively, that if we take away the 3, I can live with 2s because 2s don't beat you, 3s do. That's why everybody's fell in love with the 3. But at the same time, too, we got to take good shots, and we got to know that if you're not a three-point shooter, just don't launch threes.
Sam.
All right, Coach, so you got your first team together. You've had your first practice. Later today, we're going to find out what your first schedule looks like. You already know. We don't want you to tell us that, but tell us about your first schedule and what are the opportunities for you.
Honestly, I don't even really know the schedule. But this is what I will say, there's a lot of non-conference, obviously there's a lot of diversity. We play some really good teams. I mean, one game that we all know anyway, regardless, is we play Georgia. This year's at Georgia. That'll be a good game. We'll have another opponent in the ACC SEC Challenge. We really do have some good matchups, and I think that'll prepare us. And then we have a tournament in Hawaii as well too, but that'll prepare us for ACC play. And I think that we just need to keep building and have our trajectory just keep going in the right direction, because by January you want to be playing good ball as conference play comes around.
One or two more if anybody's got one, right?
Two of the returning players we haven't talked about are Devo and Kyle. How are they fitting in with what you're trying to do?
I think both of them are doing well. I think that it's been different for them in a sense. I'm more demanding probably. You know, again, I don't let you skip steps. You can't. I didn't get to where I got by skipping steps. So they've done everything I've asked of them. And on the basketball floor, you see them getting better each and every day and getting more comfortable with the things that we're trying to do. And both of them have big impacts on this team.
Kelly, last one.
Two things. I was just curious if you had any injuries or anything like that going into the season, and then also just kind of how do you, I guess, approach with your freshman class, like who plays, who doesn't, the redshirt policies, and kind of what's your thoughts on some of those? You already talked about Bay a little bit with the other three.
Right. Well, no injuries. We shouldn't have any injuries. You know, the normal, the knick-knack type injuries. And you know, in terms of freshmen, if they're good enough, they're going to play. I think that there is an adjustment for the most part for them. But what I would say is that I don't discriminate. You know, freshman, senior, I'm playing the best players. And again, I alluded to that earlier. You know, creating that atmosphere, a competitive atmosphere. You know, I love to compete. I want to see guys compete. And you know, it's not necessarily the toughest player, the best player wins, but it's the one that knows what to do and be the toughest and the better player, you know. So that's all I'm looking for. So I'm not putting any restrictions on any one person. You know, if somebody if one of my freshmen play better than a senior, then he's gonna play. Period.
Very good. Thank you, Coach.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Make me feel bad for not making my bed this morning, man.
See, man, you can't walk out.
And